Attorney General Paxton.
Yeah, so thank you all for being here. I want to introduce Senator Paxton, who was the author of the bill that we were just defending, a bill that's very reasonable for the state. It's agreed upon. The other side agreed upon this idea that we had a compelling interest to protect children. There's nuances of that get a little bit complicated, but we feel very good about our arguments, and we feel like we have a very strong chance of protecting children and enforcing the law that we think the legislature passed rightfully and in the best interest of the constituents of my state and also the best interest of the children of our state. So we're looking forward to a good result. I feel like the arguments went very well, and we're certainly open to ask any questions you might have today.
The other side described the state of Texas as a hostile regulator in this. Are you guys a hostile regulator of sites like Warnock?
Not unless you consider protecting children hostile. I mean, it's the design here is to protect children that are under 18, and that's perfectly reasonable for our state to do, and we don't feel like that's hostile in any way.
In what ways does the law, I guess, protect other expressions online? I mean, there was also kind of a plea for a free and open internet, and saying, you know, that there should be these restrictions generally on speech online.
So I don't understand your question.
I'm saying, how does the law not impact forms of speech beyond children? I mean,
it's really not designed to do anything other than protect children from online pornography, and doesn't go beyond that. It's very focused law. It was, I think, well designed, and it should be appropriate for our state to enforce to protect these children. And there's really not much disagreement over that.
What do you make of the argument that it infringes unfairly on people's privacy rights?
Again, there's two categories here. We're not talking about adults, and the court talked about that. We talked about it. The other side, there's a difference between adults and children, and so children seeing this material is pretty much agreed upon, certainly in my state and in many other states, that's inappropriate. It has been for our history.
In terms of what's at stake here, I mean, what does it mean if you guys lose this case? Texas can't do this.
We're not going to lose. So I'm not even worried about losing. We're going to win this case. We're going to have the right to enforce this. I have no doubt about that.
Even if there's not a direct ruling on whether to uphold or strike down the law here at the Supreme Court, do you think that if they sent it back to the Fifth Circuit on the rational basis standard, that would still be considered a victory for you all?
Sure, I think it's a victory. If they send it back on the rational basis, surely it's a victory. And you know, even if they define it differently, I mean, there's a question as to what you call it. But in the end, all we care about is being able to enforce our law, whatever you want to call it.
AG Paxton, why did you not speak in the Fifth Courtroom today?
Why? Typically, I've got a Solicitor General. That's his job. So you know, he did a pretty good job today. So I'm pretty happy with that.
And I stepped up here kind of late, so I just wanted to ask you: did you feel really good about the questions? Did you?
Yeah, I thought it was a great day. I mean, the questions were good from every justice, and I think they're going to come to a very good conclusion. I think it's going to be favorable to us. So.
The government, the U.S. government, seemed to suggest that there was a way to uphold this law, but on a different basis. What did you think of that?
Look, we don't care what it's called. They generally agree with our position. It's just a matter of what are you going to call it. You're going to stick with strict scrutiny and have some nuance to that, or are you going to do it under a rational basis, or are you going to have another newly created category by the Supreme Court? It doesn't really matter as long as we can enforce our laws.
And it seemed like their concern was sort of the next step in this, right? Like if there are regulations that go beyond this, are there other things in mind for regulating online content?
That would be actually a better question for my wife. My job is to enforce. Her job is right. If you want her to answer that question, sure.
Do you think there are other steps Texas should be taking to restrict, what content is online and what kids see?
Well, again, I would agree with the Attorney General. The purpose of this law is not about restricting. It is about protecting kids. And I have legislation that I've already planned to file. It was interesting that there were comments made about the Texas legislature not making any sort of attempt at device filtering, which actually was not true. I passed unanimously in the Texas Senate last session a bill to do that, exactly that. It was not taken up at all by the House. So, there are other things, belt and suspenders. When we talk about protecting our children, we should do common sense things that we've been doing in the real world for decades. So I absolutely see you. I think you'll see us doing more things to protect kids in the upcoming session. I appreciate very
Let's
much.
do one more. It's kind of cold out here. I don't know if you guys have noticed.
AG Paxton. One of the things that was brought up during the hearing was talking about the comparison to Playboy back in the day as compared to how technology has changed the landscape for the industry itself. What were your thoughts on the fact that especially conservative judges seem to look eye to eye with you on that issue of the change of technology requiring some of these more blockades?
Yeah, I think it's a legitimate issue, and you can see Justice Roberts was contemplating. He's the one that I think brought it up initially. So I think it's some of these cases were decided before we had all of this technology, and access became much easier for children. So I think it's a legitimate issue for them to wrestle with, and certainly our state legislature has wrestled with that and trying to figure out how do we protect children given the proliferation of technology and making this more easily accessible to children. So, hey, thank y'all. You have a great day.